All right, what's up, guys? Back with another babble. It's Rekka, back again. Anime back when. This babble comes from my man a jacuzzi. First of all, let me just say, if there is a babble that you want to hear me, if there's a topic you want to hear me babble about, talk to me in the comment section below and I'll get it on. Now, man, so this was a good one. This one came out the blue. Man a jacuzzi. He's been over here for a couple of years at least now. Shout out to you, watching the reviews, commenting, whatever. And he asked me about Dragon Ball GT and why I gave the Heroes Legacy movie a 10 out of 10 on Mal. So what I decided to do, why not just talk about Dragon Ball GT as a whole? You know what I mean? And of course, we'll spend time talking about Heroes Legacy. So Dragon Ball GT, if you're a little bit younger, I know most of the people that watch my channel and watch, channels that talk about older anime are going to be my age. I'm 27 years old, anywhere from my age, a couple years younger, and then several years, sometimes a lot of years older than me, right? But if you're younger, let's say if you're in your early 20s or younger than that, right? You might not know this, but because you might have came up with Dragon Ball Super basically was the third installment of the Dragon Ball trilogy. But before Super existed in the mid-ish 2010s, Dragon Ball GT was pretty much the trilogy closer of the Dragon Ball franchise. So it was Dragon Ball, then Dragon Ball Z, then Dragon Ball GT. Now, the thing about GT was the hate, like people might not remember this, and if you're younger, you might not know this. It was almost like a status symbol at one point for people to hate on GT. It's almost like you had to hate on GT. And, people said how, oh, it's shit, it's boring. Toriyama had nothing to do with it, which that's not true. We found out later that's not true. It's just that he wasn't as active in it as he was with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but he definitely was involved. He definitely heavily contributed to the art style, the designs and stuff like that. So that's not true. You know what I mean? But anyway, so the GT has a history of just being totally disdained. And I was part of that. Like and I was younger when GT had first come to Toonami and Bionics in YTV in Canada. I hated GT because I grew up on Dragon Ball and then Dragon Ball Z, and then when GT came out, the frequency was a little bit different. It just felt different. It didn't have that. It didn't have it had more of a darker palette. Like the palette that it used was more darker, and I'm talking aesthetically and feeling wise, energy wise. Whereas Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z had more of a brighter palette. You understand? And I didn't like it. I felt like it was kind of boring. I wasn't enthused by, the stories, the enemies. You know what I mean? Like something about it Pan didn't excite me. You know what I mean? Trunks had kind of fallen off as a character for me in GT. I just hated it. I don't know what it was. So I think a lot of anime or even Dragon Ball fans could relate to, kind of just writing off GT and acting like it didn't exist. So you fast forward now, when I was in the 11th grade, or maybe the 12th grade, 11th grade I did One Piece. 12th grade I had watched the entire Dragon Ball Z from top to bottom, and then GT. And GT, I was so disappointed in myself that I had hated on it for so many years unnecessarily, because a lot of it was fueled by other people talking about how GT is garbage and this and that. So what ended up happening is I ended up watching all of Dragon Ball Z when I was 17, all of GT, and the Heroes Legacy movie, and I was like, bro, this is actually pretty incredible. And, I'm going to say something. There's something I'm not thinking of, but there's two anime ending episodes that gave me post-anime depression when I finished it. Post-anime depression is where you kind of like, you literally get sad after you finish the show. Like you watch, and usually it's not going to happen with something that's 12 episodes or even 20, 24, 26. It's usually going to be the 100 plus episode shows. But post-anime depression is when, you watch a show, you get attached to these characters, and then the show finishes and you're kind of sad for it. At least the rest of the day, or probably the next couple of days afterwards, There's two, though. The Yu Yu Hakusho ending, that last episode on the beach with Yusuke and Keiko, and the Dragon Ball GT final moment when if you guys remember, I'm just gonna throw spoilers out, by the way. So if you have plans on watching GT, maybe don't watch. Maybe come back to this video after. But if you don't care about GT or you already know, then it's cool. But if you remember when Goku was kind of slow walking through like the town or whatever the case, and the narrator's like, and so, the Earth has now been saved by, you know what I mean? And that last moment, man, when Goku and, if I remember, was Oob with him. I don't remember if Oob was with him, but that last episode, I'm probably gonna edit the video and throw it in. But when Goku floated off into, because now it's really over. You see what I mean? With Dragon Ball Z, it wasn't as sad. I don't know what it was. It wasn't as sad because if you remember, Oob and Goku kind of went to train and whatever. But in this situation right here, it was like totally over. It was like the Earth is saved. I remember what the narrator said. He says the Earth is saved, and you know, one thing is for certain, that evil will always come back through. You know, but Goku will always be there to save. You know what I mean? And I remember the chills that I got in my body when I heard that. And then when Goku floated off into the air, like that scene right there was the best. Like that thing makes the show. It debunks the whole thing about GT is shit for me. You know, even though when I watched it, I kind of understood that it was actually dope. The Super 17 arc, the baby, like I actually enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed Super Saiyan 4, and I actually just enjoyed like the adventure, especially when you get past like that first 18 episodes where they're looking for the Black Star Dragon Balls. Those episodes, I'm not gonna lie, are kind of slow. But then past that, once you start getting into the couple of arcs that the show offers, it's only 64 episodes. Crazy, right? For people that actually, you have to watch it objectively though. That's the thing. If you don't come into GT objectively, if you come into it, nah, GT shit, GT this and that, you know, you're going to find, because it is kind of flawed, so you're only going to be able to see the flaws. You have to come in objectively. One of my friends was telling me at the time, he was just like, nah, it's actually dope. Like, don't buy into the hype of it's trash. Trust me, just watch it. So when I watched it, I went in objectively and I was like, oh, you know what I mean? But yeah, that last scene right there, you know, really got me, man. And I always looked at GT as, because of that ending, as the true third installment to the Dragon Ball trilogy. You know, that's my opinion. Super is okay, but you know, 20 years later, after they already did GT, like, come on, right? And arguably GT has the greatest, or one of, not the greatest, but GT has arguably one of the greatest anime openings of all time. Dan Kokoro. Like, what are we talking about here? You see what I mean? So now, to my man's question, Hero's Legacy, why did I give it a 10 out of 10? I actually rewatched it. I just finished rewatching it probably about half an hour ago. And when I first put it on, the first 5 minutes or so, I was like, maybe I kind of, you know, overhyped it a little bit. That's why I said in the first 5 minutes, right? But then as it was going on and on, I was like, nah, I remember why this was so great to me. See, it kind of takes it back to a little bit of the beginning of Dragon Ball, but it mainly reminds me of the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, when Gohan, you know, was in the forest basically, and he was crying all the time, and you know what I mean, when Gohan, let's be honest, Gohan was a little pussy at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. Compare that to the beginning of Dragon Ball, when Goku was in the fucking forest. Gohan was a little bitch. You know what I mean? Goku, you know, Goku's great-great-grandson, Goku, Pan's grandson, right? In this, by the way, Pan is an old woman now. He's like a combination of the two. He has that edge, but then he's also crying, you know what I mean? He cries from time to time. So basically, a brief synopsis on Hero's Legacy is basically, you know, it's follows the events of when Goku, you know, destroys Baby and this and that, and then it's basically a century later. The whole cast of Dragon Ball Z is gone. Everybody has died. Everybody has lived their lives. But remember, Pan was like the youngest one. So Pan is now basically at the end of her life as an old lady now, right? And has her grandson. So I'm guessing the parents must have died or something, or the parents must not be around. Pan's son or daughter, whoever whoever Goku Jr.'s mom is, because remember Goku Jr. is her grandson, so whoever his parents are, maybe they're not around because he's living with Pan, kind of like how Goku son Goku was living with Gohan, his grandfather. So anyway, he goes to school. There's bullies at school or whatever the case may be. He gets bitched up. He doesn't stand up for himself. He goes home. Pan, is putting her foot in his ass like, you gotta stand up and you gotta this. And then she gets kind of sick. So she ends up in the hospital and stuff like that. So when she ends up in the hospital, you start seeing Goku get really emotional, like, Grandma, you can't die. And that, I remember the memory of when I first watched that. That was where I started to realize, like, to me, this is like, because of the emotion and the feeling that you get when you're watching this. To me, this is the best Dragon Ball movie. Depending on, if you're an action head, then yeah, obviously not. But just as far as the experience that you're gonna have, to me, Hero's Legacy is the best Dragon Ball movie. That's my opinion. You know what I mean? So that's why I gave it a 10 out of 10, is the emotion, and it constantly brings you back there and back there throughout the show, throughout the movie. So then he goes and he sets off on this adventure, basically to go find the Dragon Ball, because he heard a rumor about the Dragon Ball can grant wishes. What he doesn't know is that he needs all 7 of them. But he goes looking for the Dragon Ball, which ends up being right at the spot where Grandpa Gohan, basically where Goku originally was at in the beginning of Dragon Ball, that little temple thing where he was living, and they had the 4-star ball there. That's basically where he's going to. And of course he runs into some enemies along the way, and it's just a dope, like, it kind of brings home everything that we loved about the first 2 Dragon Ball series. It kind of brings it all. It blends the 2 of them both together. It blends the original Goku when he was a kid in Dragon Ball with the beginning Gohan, at the beginning of Z. It kind of brings those 2 together and puts it into a movie form. You understand? And it doesn't do too much. At one point, spoiler alert, at one point, little Goku goes Super Saiyan and shit like that to destroy the big bad ox guy or whatever. And it's just a dope story, maybe if you haven't watched it in some years or whatever, watch it again. I'm telling you, trust me, depends on what you like. If you like Dragon Ball just for the action and stuff, then yeah, you're not gonna get what you get. You're not even gonna get what you get out of the GT series in this movie, but thematically and just the feeling that you get and just being entertained. Like, it's not, a lot of the Dragon Ball movies are boring as fuck, dog. I remember, I think it was like 2016 summer, like I was working at the airport, and I have the collections over there, the packs. So I have all 13 of the Dragon Ball Z movies, right? I think it's 13 of them. And I hadn't watched any of them, so I was like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, every day I'm gonna come home from work and watch, because those days, at that time I was working 7 days a week. So every day I'm gonna come home and watch a movie. So for 2 weeks, 13 movies, that's basically 2 weeks. And man, like, I think Cooler's Revenge was like the best one out of all of them. And there was one Broly movie also. But the rest of them, some of them were just BoJack, and some of these just bored the shit out of me. But the Hero's Legacy movie, man, like, that was a good experience. Even watching it, I didn't watch it because I watched that movie in like 2013 or 14, maybe. Yeah, maybe it was probably about 2014. I didn't get to Mal. Like, I didn't know anything about Mal. I didn't make a Mal until like 2000, maybe the end of 2015, early, at the earliest, like, I made a Mal late, basically, is what I'm saying. 2016. So I kind of was going through my memory of all the stuff that I had seen, and then when I got to GT and Hero's Legacy, I think GT got like an 8 from me or a 9, but Hero's Legacy, I had fond memories of it, so I gave it a 10. I didn't really see anything wrong with it, so that's why I gave GT Hero's Legacy a 10 out of 10, man. I really enjoyed it. For any of you guys that are GT haters, or if you've never seen GT and you don't want to watch it because you hear of all the hatred, trust me, give it a shot objectively. Don't try to look at it as this legendary. No, just give it a shot. I know the video games are fucking garbage too. Trust me, I know the PS1 Heroes bout or whatever, final bout or whatever on the P. I know it was trash. You know what I mean? I know what's the GT Advance Game Boy event. I know it was trash. I know everything connected to Dragon Ball GT comes off pretty trash. But trust me, it's a great show, man, and that movie is worth it. To me, watching GT for the ending is totally, just the ending of GT alone, totally worth it. That was one of the greatest endings. Just the feeling that you get where it was like, wow, the saga is truly over. And then of course 20 years later they come out with Super, which kind of makes it a little bit obsolete in the grand scheme of the anime community. It's kind of obsolete now, but you know, but I'm not gonna ramble the video on too long. That's what I have to say about Dragon Ball GT. Remember, write me in the comment section what you want me to talk about, man. I got tons of videos, tons of things I want to work on for you guys. So yeah, like the video, comment down below. Peace.